What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. It is your boy 8-Bit back at y'all with another one. Hold on, let me get my phone up out of the way. Right. Oh, wait a minute. Not that, not that, not that. Let's save that. Pull up this. Switch it to this. There we go. Okay. Okay. So here we go. And as a matter of fact, so we're gonna go ahead and get started with this thing, man, because it is a lot to get into actually, and I kind of want to do a deeper dive on this thing, um, and see what we can piece apart. You know what I mean? So, greetings, agents. This is CM Fragment. We would like to express our deepest gratitudes for your continued support for the Marvel Future Fight throughout the past year. In particular, 2025 was a significant year as we celebrated our 10-year anniversary theme, Legendary Heroes with Endless Evolution. Now, that's going to be kind of a significant statement, as later you will see, but let's go ahead and continue. Thanks to the enthusiastic participation of so many agents in celebratory events, it was truly a meaningful year for all of us. In other words, because they gave away 10,000 crystals, everybody came back to the game, got the 10K, did their thing, stuck around for a little bit, and some maybe hung on because of all of the new stuff. And if you've been, depending on how long you've been away, is going to determine how much of the content is newer, right? Versus how much of it is the same stuff that you may have seen in one shape, form, or fashion in the past. So that's kind of important. I'm telling you, I had to consult my Marvel Future Fight therapist after I read this thing last night. Um, so the Marvel Future Fight, his name is Angry Jackass. The Marvel Future Fight development team is using the wonderful memories we have shared. Oh, wait a minute, I skipped something. That's why it seems disjointed. Oh, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. Okay. Let's continue. The Marvel Future Fight development team is using the uh, wonderful memories we shared with you during the 10-year anniversary as a driving force, and we look forward to embarking on many more journeys with you through the years to come. We'll see. That is important, though. The years to come, could be significant. Just saying. Hopefully, they'll live up to that. Hopefully that doesn't go the way of zombie invasion multiplayer. So we'll see. Hopefully they'll make me eat those words. I'd love to eat humble pie. I'm just saying. It's my favorite dessert. Um, in this year in development team letter, we want to share our warm holiday greetings and provide a sneak peek at our 2026 plans to make the next year one you can look forward to. Please note um, the future update directions and contents are currently in the planning stage. Actual implementation timing and details are subject to change. So, that being said, hero and uniform update plans. Now, this is one they kind of always do. It's like, well, I think it was that 1 year that they really didn't drop that many uniforms. They kind of dialed back. No, the volume of the uniforms remained the same, but they really didn't drop that many new characters. I think 1 year or 2 years, something like that. It was a few years back. And then I believe in the 8-year or the 9-year development letter, they had actually promised to, hey, we're going to get better about dropping more characters since this is what you want to see, sort of thing. Now, my whole contingency has always been that if they are not dropping characters, or not if they're not dropping characters, it doesn't matter so much if you drop characters, if you drop uniforms, if there is no meaningful content for them to go into, if the balancing is so out of whack, which kind of is in the game. Just being honest, just keeping it a buck. Yeah, we know it's gonna be, the heavy hitters and all of this stuff here, but the bottom of the barrel shouldn't be so low. You know what I mean? There should be no bottom to the barrel. Everybody should be able to wade a little bit. You know what I mean? So that's my sort of thing. If you're an agent who, so, but this one is kind of important though. So, hero and uniform update plans in 2026, we plan to introduce a variety of themes focusing on new heroes and uniforms for characters who haven't received an update recently. So, I never recall them using this language in any of the dev letters, and we can pull them out throughout the course of the live stream right here, live and in effect. But just as a here's the 10-year anniversary joint, right? And if we scroll, this was the one that dropped in April earlier this year, April 22nd, 2025. This one isn't so much about the plans going forward, but so much about how the previous year ended. So in this one, they talk about 170 million agents, 528 uniforms, over 274 heroes, right? So you would think with these numbers, 274, 528, well, damn, that should mean that there should be a uniform in the game for just about every character at least once. You might be missing a few here and there, but I mean, 274, if I'm not mistaken, is like half of 528 or some shit. Like exactly on the dot. And granted, at the time, there hadn't always been 274 characters in the game. Yeah, sure, okay. But, just from a math perspective, you kind of see where I'm going with that. You know what I mean? It's 264, 528 divided by 2, right? You have 10 more heroes added to that, but the bucket of characters that have never gotten a uniform is way more than 10. And the bucket of characters that have only gotten one uniform that's more than 3 years old. We'll put those two criteria on it. You've only gotten one uniform and it's more than 3 years old, more than 3 years ago. Well, you're not even close to being viable. And a 3-year uni is hella dated in this game. So just something I thought I would point out as a caveat of being kind of important to the conversation. You know what I mean? Like just to frame stuff up and put it into perspective properly. They dropped 528 uniforms. We currently have, let me, hold up. There we go. We currently have 285 characters in the game as we speak. You know what I mean? So, there we go, right there, 285. I have 279 of them. So these aren't, and honestly, if I just went down the list here to the bottom of my barrel, well, let's see. None of the newer characters have ever gotten a uniform, so that's gonna be, um, all of the Olympians, right? Because they just dropped Slapstick, who's kind of old. Um, Patsy, who's never gotten a uniform. Misty Knight, who's never gotten a uniform. Baron Mordo, who has gotten a uniform in the past, but his base kit was better. You know what I mean? And they've dropped two MCU uniforms for this guy, and none of them have been, better than a Shadowlander. None of the Warriors 3 have ever gotten a uniform. I know we're above 10 already, right? And that's if you take Baron Mordo and Yellow Jacket. Ulysses Claw, he's never gotten a uniform. Songbird's never gotten a uniform. Hydro Man and Molten Man, they just threw them into the game as part of the Spider-Man Far From Home update and just forgot about them. Deathlock, I think, has gotten at least one look, but ages ago. They threw Red She-Hulk in the game and completely forgot about her. Morbius, off the top of my head, Giant Man. Yeah, he's got a couple of uniforms, but they're so old it's ridiculous. Phyla Vell, she came as part of an Epic Quest. I take that back. Nova Sam Alexander is the only member of that uh, Ultimates update that hasn't gotten a uniform. And none of the members of that Ultimates update have gotten tier 4, and none of them have gotten a good uniform. Not one. So, this guy, Goliath, they just threw him out there, just random. Here you go. The strength of this game has always been the amount of characters that you have at your disposal. Why not make them good? So, my initial reading of this, I was thinking they should go the way of Odin with a lot of these characters who haven't had an update recently. If you're not going to give them a uniform, if you are going to give them a transcendent skill, rework their base kit to bring them more in line with what is going on in the game currently. Even if they don't get a tier 4, they will at least be a feasible option somewhere for somebody. Right? So, and the reason why I bring up Odin, yeah, I know he's native tier 2. I know he's popular. I know he's, the All Father, all this stuff, right? Yeah, we know this. But the thing is, when Odin got this uniform, his very first uniform, the All Father uniform, they reworked his base kit. This is not Odin's original kit. Let me, and maybe one of the older content creators that has archives on this guy can pull this stuff up, but none of this is Odin's original kit except I believe the tier 2 passive did not get touched. Um, I don't think his leadership got touched. Not so sure about the 4-star passive. They did give him the frenzy buff, and I think of the few of the ABX skills. The only thing, as I recall, this uniform did not have was a heal. They granted the 100% damage immunity. They gave him a 4-hit barrier. But they basically, reworked the 4 and the 5, I do believe, to make them a little more, to make them a little bit better than the original. They gave him a few things. They gave him his tier 3 at this particular time. So it kind of worked in a way where, yeah, if you had Odin's uniform, he was amazing. Way better than this. But I don't want to say you could get stuff done with him, but he was in a much, much better place than he was originally to be a native tier 2 sort of character. So, in the spirit of Odin, in the spirit of Odin's blessing, uh, I think that would be a good solution without having to invest and delve a lot of resources into an entire uniform, an entire look, character modeling, character remodeling, character animation, renaming skills, all of this stuff. Without having to go that deep, you could touch up a lot of these characters that have been requiring it for a long, long time now. And I really think that would help with the health of the game, especially if you're talking about some of the stuff, that we'll get into later on in this dev letter. If you're an agent who loves a specific character but has been waiting a long time for a new uniform or a uniform at all, right? So this is, uniform replacements like a Killmonger, like all of these sorts of cats. But then this is also, characters who have never been touched, like Singularity or a lot of the Sinister Six. They fall into both of those categories, honestly. With the exception of Doc Ock and Norman Osborn. So there is that. They also go on to say, let's see, if you're an agent who loves a specific character but has been waiting a long time for a new uniform or a uniform at all, we ask for your high expectations. I hope this is not a mistranslation. I really do hope that this is not some sort of mistranslation. Because while I can't speak for the community at large, I can speak for myself personally. My expectations, when you tell me to set them high, are going to be just that. And this is why I get into stuff like, them reworking the base kit of characters. It'll save players so many crystals. It will bring players back to the game, I think. Because you'll be able to utilize a lot more characters. And I'm not saying they gotta come in and make everybody OP, and then in turn that devalues the value of uniforms sort of situation. That's not what I'm saying. So that's sort of the caveat: the uniform should still be valuable. They should still hold weight. But, by and large, what should hold the most weight in the game should be your cards, right? Then maybe uniform, CTP, um, or no, cards, then maybe swords, then maybe uniform, CTP, then maybe shit like emblems, Odins, um, that sort of shit. And let's see, let's go ahead and continue. As many agents are already aware, we have an upcoming celebration with the Marvel action game, Marvel Cosmic Invasion, which we will be picking up and we will be streaming as soon as we get our hands on this Elgato. So we'll see. Come on, baby, let's go. Yeah. So we appreciate your continued interest in which heroes will be updated in the soon to arrive collaboration. So, what I'm seeing in here is maybe possibly some sort of hero poll to come along with this. This maybe not necessarily attached to Marvel Cosmic Invasion, but maybe other characters that can not necessarily accompany the collab update, but can cover other portions of the year where um or maybe even set up for 2027, where the schedule may not be as collab influenced, MCU influenced, so you need those sort of filler updates. I kind of think that's where they came up with the idea for the seasonal uniforms, was they needed that filler. But yeah, that's just my own personal conspiracy theory. The Marvel Universe holds a vast array of themes and heroes that we have yet to introduce. We will not only bring you future MCU themed updates, but also endeavor to incorporate themes and heroes that many agents have repeatedly requested. So, for all of you guys that have been requesting Agatha all along, Wiccan, uh, uh, what's the other one I see a lot of? Cloak and Dagger. Um, what else? What else? What else? Those are the main three that I see the most on things like X, and even in the, like, if I scroll down to the bottom here, I'm quite sure I will see, and just to get into some of the feedback down here that we were going to talk about later on, you got the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. update. And who do we have here? A bunch of characters that have not been touched outside of Phil Coulson in a seasonal uniform. So yeah, this was also pretty cool. The Marvel Rivals, Hela, what did they call this thing? Marvel Rivals Queen in Black. So Hela gets the symbiote sort of situation. Um, Hela's been touched enough, I think, and not too in the distant past, and she's tier 4. So the other thing that I'm reading into that is that some Marvel Cosmic Invasion stuff. Okay, so I don't know why 12 people are angry at the dev letter. Like, come on, dudes, y'all are. The only reason why you can even be mad is because of the whole lack of acknowledgement of the zombie multiplayer stuff. But we'll get into that later. So let's go ahead and continue here. So, yeah, if you've been requesting, um, over and over and over again the same sort of updates. Um, hopefully we can get a hashtag justice for Nightcrawler going, right? And Nightcrawler in particular, or the X-Men in general, you know, even if you look at a lot of the Epic Quest characters, Moonstone, they dropped her in the game and forgot about her, right? So, all these sorts of characters, instead of the same, one character with 10 uniforms sort of situation that we have. Let's see, content improvement and update plans. In 2026, we will focus on reviewing and improving our existing content. So this is quality of life changes that are coming to the game, as well as, phasing out certain content, and hopefully at the same time, phasing in certain content. We've already lost co-op or uh, multiverse invasion, whatever you want to call it, depending on how long you've been playing that particular game mode. But yeah, our goal is to address inconveniences and strengthen the game's foundation while continuing to add content to keep the game fun and engaging for all agents, phasing out certain time-consuming content. We are reviewing the possibility of removing content that we believe requires significant time investment without providing a corresponding level of enjoyment. Okay, so this can be interpreted a couple of different ways, similar to the removal of Multiverse Invasion in the December update. So this can be interpreted a couple of different ways. Now, I did catch Alex's video earlier when he was talking about the whole this thing not necessarily being a good thing, because when you think about it, and to a certain degree, he's right. There's not a whole lot that they can do to phase content out that's particularly time consuming, but you also have to think about it in these terms. A game mode like Dimension Missions, that's pretty much a one and done. Now, the game modes actually exist, and I can come in here, I can run the game modes, I have all of these rewards, I can get all of these bios and all of this stuff. This is things that they really should go ahead and just phase into the crafting shop, honestly. And then roll these rewards, the cards, all of that stuff into other areas of the game. You can already craft cards at a better rate than you can coming in here earning 1, 2, and 3-star cards. The obelisks themselves, the Uru, all of this stuff at a lower level, yes, it's important. But the support shop, this is something that they can just pack up and roll into another game mode. Yes, it doesn't take very long, but it is so repetitively tedious to come in here, click this thing. The one that he was saying that he didn't really want to see go was story mode. And I get it, I understand it. They may wind up doing away with this, but this is the thing. They kind of shot themselves in the foot with story mode when they combined all of the fragments into the same pool, right? And basically made it where it was only one chest that had everything in it, as opposed to one chest for P cards, one chest for CTPs, one chest for ISOs. One, you could target farm. And even if you want to roll all of these things, where you could go in and you could play, um, Dimensional Clash, and then you could come back and play True Shield, and then come back and play the other two, All War and Future Ends here, and get separate, not the same pool. What do you call these damn things? These freaking story fragments, right? But they were all their own separate, self-contained story fragment, right? So one of them you needed like 3 fragments, the other one you needed 4, another one you needed 4, and then the Future Ends here you need 9. What they really could do is condense the Future Ends here so you're not running so many damn missions. They could keep the other game modes as is and then separate out the story fragments again to where people can target farm. So if I want to farm for CTPs, if I want to farm for premium cards, I can do so. That would be, rewarding for the amount of time put in and all of that. And all of this for a game mode that you play on auto. So that's number one. Let's see, Multiverse Saga, it's too new. They're not going to do away with it. So I would be interested to see. Maybe they plan on rolling story mode into Multiverse Saga some kind of way, to make it a more equitable and more rewarding sort of thing, and still be able to condense this whole mission tab. I don't think Dimension Rifts are going anywhere. They're talking about an update for Shadowlands, so I definitely don't think it's going anywhere. They're going to continue with the legendary battles, I think. But outside of people playing this thing for the first time, these are pretty much one and dones. Unless you come in, you spend the crystals, and you go after the high level reward. Now, if they wind up rolling all of this stuff up and doing away with it, that's going to mean a significant shift in the game. And I don't know if they have a way to give players adequate rewards by packing up a system with this much premium items spread out over so many different levels. I mean, for instance, you take the Thor joint. While the premium cards are crappy, you can get a premium card out of this thing. You can get a CTP out of this thing. The Black Panther Epic Quest, when you spend the crystals, you can get the Black Panther premium card. You can get an egg. You can get a CTP of energy. A couple of them have rages in them, like this one right here. When you complete it with the final battle right here, has New Avengers number 9, and I think, it's an egg, so it's the other one. I think it's like Endgame or something. Yep. So you can get a CTP of energy by owning, a CTP of rage by owning a Type 3 enhancement on your Thanos. So, little stuff like that. And it's just spread out all over the place. So if this is one of the game modes that they wound up packing up, Yeah, I would be interested to see. The crystals are a pretty easy turnover. They can just, say, here's a bunch of crystals. As far as the specific types of CTPs, um, I don't know. We will really have to wait and see. We will really have to wait and see. In the meantime, maybe I should drop a few crystals, come in here and snatch me up a rage and complete the rest of these things so I can get the rest of my rewards out of here. Um, and I mean, even Spider Man Far From Home, I forgot all about that. You had the old school CTP selector down here. Um, that you can get all the way up to a rage um, for. Don't really know if it's worth the amount nowadays, but back then it was definitely worth the crystals. And then these started getting worse. They started giving shit like, um, potential enhancement tickets and, uh, CTP Insight at the time, when Insight was new, wasn't a bad thing. But then this is also with the advent of Tier 4, they finally dropped a judgment there. Um, I think at the time, Judgment was new to the game. You can get your 4-star Thor artifact. Should really be like a 5 or a 6, considering you're dropping crystals, sort of situation. So, yeah, one of the other game modes, though, I think overall, outside of just the rewards, I think they could pack up Legendary Battle. I mean, that's just me. But, after you one and done that thing, you're not really going in there like that. It's kind of like the Epic Quest Star. Um, the only difference is it would be much more difficult, I think, for them to pack the Epic Quest up, especially considering they're continuing to drop those. Um, and it's far too big of a revenue stream for them. So, certain game modes are kind of off limits. I would say Legendary Battle would fall into that too, just because of the MCU tie-ins. I mean that whole game mode is about MCU tie-ins. Um, all of these are about all of the movies. So I don't know how much leeway they would have there. Dimension Rifts is an interesting one because you know while opening a rift, it does take 30 minutes. That is a significant portion of time. That is an hour and a half out of your day. I think what they could do to help this is to shorten the rifts to 10 minutes apiece and like triple the rewards or at least double the rewards, something like that. To where you're not really losing out by not running as many rifts. You just don't need to run as many to get to the finish line, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Instead of having to run 30 laps to get around the track because your legs are 2 inches, you got stilts. You're running this thing in 3 steps, sort of situation. You got out of the Volkswagen Golf and you got in the Guinea type of thing. So You went from a party boat to a speed boat. That sort of situation. So there's a lot of meat to be had in the conversation of, well, what game modes could actually be shaved down? And I think that's where kind of dimension rifts sort of fall in. We've seen them do this recently across all of the PvP content for the most part. That's all single player. They cut the runs down from 10 to 5 in conservation of time. So, yeah, I could see them doing something similar um, with something like Dimension Rifts. And it's an older game mode, and I think the only reason why people play it is just to farm the emblems, and it's mindless autoplay. So when they talking about enjoyment, it's like that's the other thing, the autoplay side of this, right? Um, from the autoplay perspective, I I don't think it's good for the game overall because it's a game. The whole point is to play it, my G. I mean, what is this? I'm gonna sit back and where is it? I'm gonna sit back and I'm gonna set up here on I'm gonna set up here on stage 7-1 a dispatch, and we gonna jump in here and we gonna farm this joke type thing. What is this? I told like I told progression repeat. What is this? Like, are we playing a game or we got a screensaver? It's just fancy. I'm just saying, like, if you're gonna give me a game, give me a game. Don't give me a don't get me started. Anyway, um, we're gonna go ahead and run a good old GBR and so we can get us some autoplay going in the background. You know what I mean? So we don't lose no rewards. Um, but yeah, that was one of my least favorite part of the games. Like, I don't want game modes to take forever, but I do want more game modes that I can play. Um, essentially, as it stands, there are only 3 game modes in the game that we actually have to pick the device up and fiddle with: GBR, World Boss, and Alliance Battle. That's why they're the most popular, because you have to play them, and they're rewarding, and they're enjoyable to a degree for different reasons. And the only reason why we don't have a PvP game mode like that is due to balancing, really. Something else they sort of touched on in the dev note, but not really and not enough. And specifically for PvP. Yep. Let's get out your way. Now, I don't mean to sound all pessimistic and all doom and gloom. I'm glad that we got the dev letter, but one thing that I've always felt that dev letter allows us to do is to critique um, the development team, which is necessary um, for the health of the game. You know, as I recall, some of the best years of the game were years when they were doing surveys and taking feedback and doing polls. And, you know, that's when the game was at its best. Um, yeah, let's do some autoplay in the background while we jump back into this dev letter. So we will scale down elements that may feel tedious and instead focus on providing more enjoyment through hero growth. So we're going to make it easier to build your heroes, but I got a hinkling that the ease is going to come at a cost. And that cost mainly being tier 5. Sorry, but that's kind of what I'm seeing here. You know what I mean? It's like, well, yeah, you have to progress heroes to. That was the whole point of them pushing all of those characters through on Transcended, right? No uniform, just Transcendence. Here you go, naked Transcendence. That was the whole point of that, was to get off of tier 2 so they could then introduce a tier 4 for these characters, no matter how god awful they are. So we'll see. So even if some content is removed, we plan to adjust the rewards so that you can still require the corresponding items from other content without shortfall. That's good to hear. But how some of those items are required and which game modes actually get removed is important. But you know, we know the few mainstays are probably going to be. Now they may actually sunset timeline battle. That's the other thing I was thinking about, because they've been going so much more autoplay, especially in terms of PvP. Um, and I don't think that's a good idea. And yeah, I know timeline gets a lot of shit, but really they just need to balance the freaking characters. If there were counters for the metas, we would not be in this mess. We just wouldn't. There should be a counter to Sentry. There should be a counter to Null. There should be a hard counter to Surfer. There should be a hard counter to Adam Warlock, and you know, all of these top meta characters. Now you can argue what the expense of that counter should be, right? But yeah, it should kind of be more balanced that way. Um, so World Boss content improvements. We plan to improve the Legend Plus World Boss experience by addressing the long play times of World Boss by causing extended duration, frequent patterns, and lengthy cutscenes. Listen, the only people that this really matters to um, is people that are trying to push like Stage 99 World Boss and World Boss Legend Plus, or will they specifically say World Boss Legend Plus? Um, or Legend Plus World Boss. Interesting how they worded that. So we are preparing to increase the sections where the patterns can be skipped and reduce the duration of the patterns themselves. Okay. Furthermore, we are considering a balance adjustment to mitigate the difficulty of World Boss Legend Plus as the stages advance, which currently becomes excessively challenging. We plan to reduce the boss's HP while simultaneously increasing its attack power to better preserve the fun. Okay, so this is like, six in one hand, half a dozen in the other. Robbing Peter to pay Paul. Long axe, short axe, whatever you want to call it. Listen. And listen to me real good, Netmarble devs. This is not balance right here. This, come to the front of the congregation, please. This right here, we plan to reduce the boss's HP while simultaneously increasing attack power to better serve the fun and challenge intention of taking on the world boss. This is not gonna, you're basically saying, okay, we'll make it where you can, who can one shot who first. That's basically what you're turning it into. And if that's the case, it's going to become a situation of what's the point of the build, right? It's going to become a what's the point of a bunch of shit. But I realize World Boss is probably one of the most played game modes in the game, along with ABX, along with the GBR. But I think you should focus more on why players play those game modes and try to expand those ideas of what works into other game modes, as opposed to, having a decent formula to a good formula or even an excellent formula and tinkering with it. You're worried about fixing stuff that isn't broken with World Boss. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, my guy. Plain and simple. The only people that are complaining about, oh, I can't climb stage 99 of World Boss because it's pay to win and whatever, which I'm not saying that those people are wrong. They actually aren't. But I would rather that be the case, not so much the pay to win stuff. Because you can get a mighty, a brilliant, you can get a decent build, you can get decent cards with time and effort. And not having to spend an arm and a leg on the game like some players. And still be able to climb decently high enough in World Boss to get a 5 or a 6-star artifact. For most players and for most characters, you're really not going to need much more than a 5-star artifact for most instances outside of PvP. And for those few niche times where you kind of, you're losing because you don't have Wolverine's 6-star undead passive, That's more of a where they need to come in and do more game balancing issue, as opposed to anything else, I think. Um, let's see. Finally, we are preparing an improvement that makes beyond that moves beyond the previous system. We're playing World Boss more than 5 times daily, limited to simple training mode. We aim to enable additional play that still offers a sense of achievement. While you will continue to receive World Boss clear rewards for only the first 5 clears, we plan to allow you to pursue next stage unlock requirements and challenge higher stages without restriction. So, what this means, there are no first clear rewards for each stage, but there are first clear rewards for every fifth stage of World Boss. So, uh, 60 or 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 sort of situation, right? Those levels that have those first clear rewards and all of that stuff, and then the daily rewards, those first 5 clears, that's where all of your rewards are going to come from. However, if you are, needing to do something like the 100-second challenge, and you came close, but no cigar, but you kind of feel like you can do it and you actually do it, you'll still get the credit for doing it, which is actually dope. Because how sucky would it be to run it in training mode to try and get, but you can never quite get that good enough run in during your actual 5 stack. Um, all this sort of stuff. So, that's going to be great. I think that's a welcome addition to World Boss clearing. I think that would probably be the only change that I would make to the World Boss system. That, you know, maybe not, clearing, maybe I can clear 61, 62, 63, 64 for no reward, but there's no first clear reward on, any of those stages. But then when it comes to 65, I wait because that's where my first clear reward is. That's where my sort of situation. You know, this is where the typing actually changes. So I have to bring different metas in, all this sort of stuff. So I actually think that's a dope change, but those would be the only changes that I would make to the World Boss system. All of this stuff about fucking with the HP and the attack of the World Boss, they really just need to leave that shit alone. Let's see here. First clear rewards for each World Boss stage will be instantly acquired as soon as you successfully complete a higher stage challenge. Okay, so they're saying that the first clear rewards you'll still get for the first clear, but you won't get anything outside of the, you won't get your dailies. Which, like I said, I'm fine with that. New content updates alongside improvements to the existing content, we are preparing a variety of new content additions. We are currently preparing to introduce a new epic quest and new world boss. So here we go again. Same wash, rinse, repeat, right? The new epic quest, bro, y'all just dropped one and it was hot garbage. Why would you? I would not be mentioning anything about an epic quest. I would be talking about, like, hey, we got another PvP game mode here for you. Or um, hey, we're revamping timeline battle. Or hey, we're gonna make it where you can actually use your characters in team battle arena, like you can control them. Or you can, we're introducing controls to other world battles, similar to what we used to do with Battle World. Remember Battle World? But yeah. Furthermore, we are preparing to introduce a new giant boss raid. Well, about damn time. And they even go on to say the first one since Dormammu, aka the first the first giant boss raid, multiplayer content. How long has Tier 4 been out? Because that's when Dormammu came out. 2-3 years, some shit like that. And the game mode, we're just not hearing about it. So this could be 6 months, 8 months, 10 months down the line sort of situation. Not saying that's what it's gonna be, but they're saying this is what they plan in 2026. They didn't say when. So we'll have to wait and see. But finally, that's all that's all I can say is just it is just finally.
In case you didn't hear them, they said, "Oh, hell yeah!"
So, like I said, man, the GBR first one since Dormammu, that's at least 2 years ago, if not longer. And I want to say that it's longer. I think it was like 2021, 2022, whenever Tier 4 came out. So yeah, it's been a while. Let's see, along with the expansion of dispatch missions. So we're gonna get a new sector for dispatch. And dispatch farming. I mean, I'm not completely against autoplay content. I'm just against overdoing it. And right now, I think we are at a point in the game where the amount of set it and forget it type content that we have in the game is part of what's killing the game. You know what I mean? It's part of why players are losing interest, because there's nothing for you to actually do. Let's see, an update to Shadowland content. Another game mode that you can put on autoplay. So yeah, I'm not sure. Like, and it's one thing giving players the option to take control of the character, but if you want to play it on auto, that's fine. I'm not against that. But, Otherworld Battle, Team Battle Arena, while they are great game modes in theory and concept, I think what holds them back the most is the fact that you can't control the characters. So, now, put me an autoplay button down here if you want to, for the players that, want to do that sort of thing. But for those of us that actually want to get out there, let us handle our business. So expansion of dispatch and an update to Shadowland. That's gonna actually be freaking dope as fuck. The last Shadowland update was dope. We got the Shadowland shop, which is amazing. The only problem is Shadowland is way too easy, and by the time it does start to get difficult, you've been sort of checked out, right? I mean, the problem is if you make the content more difficult at lower levels for these, low level trash characters that have never gotten updated, like Singularity or Songbird or you name it. What happens is you start to push with the high end stuff. You know what I mean? It's like the balancing has to be done in such a way. That was an amazing idea that Alex had earlier too, about the whole splitting it off, maybe like a Shadowland Plus sort of situation, and then regular Shadowland. I think that would actually be dope. You never really want to divide the player base as a matter of course, right? But in this situation, I think it would kind of apply because you have to make caveat and room for growth for new players. And it would give them something to aspire to. You know what I mean? And for all I know, the game mode could come out, they do just that, and then I'm not able to qualify, so it's something for me to work to. I could look forward to something like that. So there's that. I also wish they would focus less on events, but events is part of mobile gaming, so can't ask the tiger to change its stripes. Let's see, the specific timing is not yet set, but we will inform you through another development team letter or notice as soon as preparations become complete. Other improvements. In addition to the content improvements mentioned above, we are listening closely to feedback and are actively looking for ways to address areas of inconvenience. For example, and I love that they give examples. We are thoroughly reviewing the difficulty of using Tier 4 striker skills and the issue that using only one custom gear limits a hero's utility. Now, this one is interesting. I know this has been a matter of contention for a lot of players for quite some time, where, and myself included, you may want to use a particular character in more than one way. I can see this being both good and bad for the game because it would only be more of the same. Let me explain. It's not going to matter so much for a character like Sentry. He's only useful in PvP, not very useful in PvE. And I don't want to oversimplify it because, of course, this isn't going to apply to every character. But Wolverine, prime example of this. He is good for PvP. He is good for PvE in his current uniform, the Deadpool 3. Right? But having the switch and all of this stuff really becomes problematic. Now, where it becomes a problem is with your more high end characters that are useful in both PvE and PvP, like Mephisto and Null. Kang may also become part of that mix. Um, Jean Grey was the originator of that mix. So that's kind of my problem with that whole second custom gear thing. Um, originally the second custom gear idea on its face sounds very, very good for the game. I mean, just look at a character like Thanos. You have Farmer Thanos, yeah, and he's unique in this way because he has two different uniforms that are both very viable for vastly different content. Right? You have the old man King Thanos, who's very useful in PvP, not as useful unless certain characters are banned, like Sentry, Null, and a bunch of the other top metas. But specifically those two, possibly Adam. Then he can get in there and, do a few things. But he's also very, very good in PvE with Farmer Thanos and a Rage. So this whole extra custom gear, I think the way that they get the most out of it is through game balancing. Okay. Yeah, let me not accidentally lose the fight. This man got Noah, Mephisto, and Sentry. Okay, Sentry got through two of the three of you. All right, Noah. I got Noah said, don't worry about it. Hand me your lightweight. I got body armor. Oh, hold on. This guy just one shot. My damn. Wait a minute. What's going on with this dude's nose? Wow. Let me guess. That was the last fight. Of course it was. Of course it was. Okay. Go back in and spin up some of these glory tokens. Okay, we had three more cheers to get off. Okay. Well, maybe we do some kind of live stream commemorating, um, I guess, Shadowland before whatever revamp they have planned. Would be dope. Let's see here. Yeah, we can use her because why not? Why not? Don't tell me she can't even get the Frost Beast to spawn. That is wild. The tier 4s or certain tier 4s cannot get the Frost Beast to spawn. Okay, she can. Okay. So say that's kind of wild. But yeah, just to round out this dev note here, and we'll be diving into this over the next couple of live streams, and later on in the year, of course, pretty frequently, as it makes sense to do so. But they go on to say, while it is challenging to incorporate every single opinion, we will do our best to reflect the feedback that has been consistently submitted. So, once again, consistency. So they are wanting the feedback to know which characters we want them to fuck with, which game modes we want them to improve, adjust, how we want those adjustments. So the more detailed, the better. Finally, we want finally thank you once again for helping us successfully conclude the 10-year anniversary year 2025. We are planning an eventful 11-year anniversary celebration and are setting our plans for the next year to diligently execute the improvements we've outlined. So basically, the stuff that they were talking about, they're working to try and get everything lined up so we can look forward to seeing some of this probably around the 11-year anniversary. So April is what I'm thinking. Outside of that, the stuff that they have, between now and then, I think is probably going to be pretty much already in the can and just waiting for fine tunes and release dates and this sort of thing. So, whatever else they have planned after Kang is pretty much going to be set. I think we'll probably see that collab sooner rather than later. As it was announced a few months ago. Before the release of Marvel Cosmic Invasion, and now that the game's been released, it only makes sense to go ahead and do the collab. So I think that's something we can look forward to in the nearer future rather than the more distant. Let's see, we will always review suggestions through various channels, but we pay even closer attention to comments left on this development team letter. So make sure you save this. I'm bookmarking this as we speak so we can go down off in here and actually, deep dive into this thing. And as a result, they're giving away some tier 4 materials and an Odin's blessing. So let's go ahead, and if we haven't picked that up, we already did. So yep, already collected. So yeah. So if you ever want to get back in and access that thing, I think bookmarking it would be a good idea. We also have a few rewards to pick up here before we get out of here. So let's start with the cards or the artifacts. We'll pick up this booty box as well. 101 Phoenix Feathers. 5 or 6 star card. Okay, we got the Thor card, the What If joint. Would have been nice to get a premium card. Okay, that's not so bad. Okay, 80K gold. Wish I could get more than 2 on them joints. Okay, another 4 star card. Another bum artifact. Okay, a 3-piece crit. Okay. Let's go ahead and pick up this hopefully. Actually, I want to kind of get the bad orangey out of the way. Yeah. Okay. Not really doing so good as far as that sort of stuff is concerned. Okay, 4-piece token. Not bad. 2-piece X-Force token. 3-piece X-Force. Would have been nice to get a crit there. A 5-piece token. Oh, gear up kit. Hopefully we can get us a Brilly. We got a freaking regen. Are you serious? An egg and a regen, bro? All right, let's go ahead and pick the rest of this up. Absolute garbage. Absolute garbage. Okay, so we should tier 3 someone. The question is who? Yeah, she's gonna eat up way too many bios. I want to do Sunspot, but I know he's not gonna get anything for a minute. And then this guy's Awakened. Sunspot is actually tier 3. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna have to work that off stream. We'll go ahead and get in one more GBR. And I think we're gonna call it a day. And then later on we can get into piecing this dev letter apart some more in comparison to previous ones. But we're also in that point of radio silence from them after this communique until, well, we still got Kang. So the patch notes from him, his release, and then Radio Silence for the next month or so. Okay. Mm. Please don't crash. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. It's like, yeah, we're gonna end with this game mode. Here we are playing another game mode. Um, yeah, that works. Why not? Might as well go ahead and kill off ABXABL. Um, I must say though, since the removal of Multiverse Invasion, you do wind up having a whole lot more time to kill in the game. And in terms of getting, certain rewards, that's actually dope. Oh, I don't have an ABX canceled. Um, that all right. Nice. Okay. Hmm. Thought it took a half step less. 11 million. But I'll take it. And then Storm should score pretty highly here. Wow. I cast the second skill right there at the beginning, bro. Are you serious? All right. Can we get 8? My rotations wasn't off. Another half. second, we'd have had it. Yep, and still nada. So, yeah, also additionally, if you're waiting for the extra 10 tokens to drop, they dropped today. So you can now go on and purchase the Winter Queen or the Sharon Rogers. Personally, I would say if you have Madeline, go after the Winter Queen uniform. It's probably going to hold its value for a while. And she'll be that sort of tweener for timeline battle, this sort of thing. Maybe be the female blast villain Yang to Adam Warlock's Yin in PvP. You know, some sort of hero snipe sort of situation. So, anywho, we'll have to wait and see how that goes. I'm going to go ahead and clean the rest of this board up. And we'll do the rest of our rewards off stream. Anywho, y'all like, comment, share, sub. Let me know what y'all think. My bad, I thought I had the game back up. But yeah, y'all make sure y'all hit that thumbs up. Make sure y'all hit that notification bell. We will be back to talk a little more about the dev note and this sort of thing as the months progress. And it'll be interesting to see which way they decide to go with the direction of the game and which characters they decide to pick based on character feedback. I'm encouraging them to do some sort of poll and just make it, you know, an open-ended sort of poll, you know, or you know, take the top 30 or so worst characters in the game and rework them. But the Odin base kit thing, I think that's something that they can do for, you know, a majority of players, a majority of the characters in the game. Especially, you know, I really wouldn't focus so much on characters that have, you know, 10, 15 fucking uniforms. You shouldn't be anyway, but for characters that have never gotten anything, you know, if you gave them a bogus ass Shadowland skill, you know, touch up the rest of their kit, add a few hits there, you know, make this skill cancelable there, all this sort of stuff. You know, what's that saying? A little goes a long way. And that's those would be character improvements that everybody would be able to take advantage of immediately. So, you know, that's the upside to that. But anyway, like I said, y'all hit that thumbs up, hit that notification bell. Make sure y'all sound off in the comments below. And we will catch you all in the next one. Peace.